They left him minding the donkeys and the goats. And just in time, for over the brow of the hill appeared a group of angry young farmers bearing down on them and shouting wild, "You ruffian, Danny, you young git, I'll have your life, as sure as sin, I'll have your skin." Rhymes. Yeah. Can I read you later? Hello and welcome to Community of Independence on DCTV Season 4, Episode 4. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to have music chat in the studio from Mo T. We'll also have Aoife Barry reporting on Charmers. We also have Kenny Hanlon talking about Apartment Records. And as well as that, we'll have Joe Bladen with another insightful album review. But to begin tonight's show, SoCal, Ruin versus the A-Bomb, 1, 2, 3, 4! That was SoCal with Ruin versus the A-Bomb. The video was made by Rory Walsh of Spire Productions and produced by Johnny Weiss, and the track is taken from the Split LP Out of Season released last year on Inflated Records. I am joined by Kenny Hanlon of Apartment Records. Can I ask you, Kenny, what prompted you to start Apartment Records?
I don't particularly think there was any one specific thing that prompted me to start it. I just kind of felt like doing something more with music. I've been DJing for maybe 10 years or so. Hadn't really any urge to make any music, so I figured I had a little bit of money, decent sort of contacts, and I kind of knew how to go about doing it. So
yeah, you felt like there wasn't too much of a learning curve because you've been involved with dance music in Dublin.
Yeah, and I'd gotten to know people, friends who were running labels for a few years before that. You know, before I knew anybody, it would have seemed quite daunting, you know, how to do it. But then once some friends, both here and abroad, had been running labels, I kind of asked them a lot of stuff and kind of realised then that it's pretty doable. And I had some people I knew making music that I thought was worth giving it a shot. So it just kind of went from there. But there was no massive catalyst or anything to set me on my way. And
can I ask you, why did you go vinyl only, for example? Not strictly that vinyl, but
no.
Other,
unfortunately not.
Other releases.
Well, I don't really, like I always DJ'd vinyl. I've never got caught up in the whole digital world. I still don't really download music. I don't really buy digital music. So it was the obvious way for me to go. There was no, like I haven't put a total lid on ever doing digital, but for the time being, I've no real interest in it. So sure, I might be listening or missing out on sellers or buyers even, sorry. But I'm kind of thick enough about it that I just want to keep it vinyl for the time being.
Yeah, have the physical document and...
Yeah, like I run in a label at all. I think it's good to have be it tapes or vinyl or whatever type of music you're doing. You want to see that physical product there. You know, and the same with the artists as well. You know, a lot of them are much happier, to get that record in their hands. You know, it feels like it's actually real, that it's there.
Absolutely, so, yeah. It's a lot easier for things to get overlooked if it's just something stuck up online. And
yeah, like definitely. In terms of promoting it as well. Most promotion is done digitally these days, so people just send out files, emails, addresses, and I know from getting them myself that. If you play vinyl and you're into it, you tend to ignore the digital ones. Yeah. So I specifically send out white label promos then to DJs. I think who'd appreciate the vinyl, and who would be like myself would probably ignore it if it went into their inbox or so. You try and have little things like that to get you noticed as well.
Yeah. So what would have been some of the challenges starting up the label? Obviously you were clued in, you had some friends, and you ask them some key questions. What did you learn from them that you took to Apartment
the
Records?
big thing was distribution. I'm not interested in having it as an Irish only thing. You wouldn't be able to sustain it that way anyway. But definitely the big one was making sure you get a good distribution deal, and that can get you to as many shops as possible. Trying to do it on your own, you get the odd person who's gung ho going, bypass the distributors. Obviously they take their cut, but the records are stocked as far away as Australia and Japan. I wouldn't be able to do that on my own bat. And trying to see, having a distribution company based in Germany, just for selling to shops, if they're selling bulk of a bunch of other labels, it's much easier for the shops to buy off them than trying to buy off one guy in Ireland, it's a lot of that. So that was, realistically, that was the main thing. Yeah. Finding a good pressing plant. I was recommended a couple of ones, and good places, good mastering houses, but definitely distribution, to get it out there as much as possible around the world was the main thing. Okay. And I was pretty happy with how you
managed that, yeah?
With the deal that I got.
Excellent.
It's a small distributor in Berlin called Diamonds and Pearls, and they're really hands-on and helpful. Some of the bigger distributors I was kind of warned off at the beginning because it's an unknown label. Yeah,
and it's anonymous in a way as well.
Yeah, like some of the bigger distributors might be more interested, they look after the bigger acts, and your records might get, down at the bottom, but Diamonds and Pearls, it's growing, but it's quite small, and they look after each label pretty well individually, so it worked out well, yeah.
Excellent. So what would be the plans for the future now with Apartment Records?
I'm usually about 3 or 4 records ahead of myself, working on the next 3 or 4.
Right.
Up next after this one, we just put out Phantom Planet Outlaws in TR1, which is a split 12-inch. That's kind of hitting the stores the last 2-3 weeks. It's just getting out there now. That'll be pretty much it for this year. And then first up next year, then we'll have various artists, 12 of all Irish acts as well. With New Jackson and TR1 and The Cyclist and Superior Inferior and Slow Burn. So after that, I'm not really sure. I have other things in the pipeline, but I'm not
the
sure
talent
which
pool's
is next.
there anyway.
Yeah, and it's not just Irish artists that I work with either. It's kind of as much by accident that there's been as many. I didn't set out to have X amount of Irish and X amount of international artists. We've had English people involved and whatnot. So I've got plenty of people that I'm working with, both here and abroad. And you're kind of trying to, it's kind of easy to sort of chase after bigger names, and I've got, quite a few friends and people making stuff and connections to get in contact with bigger artists, but there's 1 or 2 that are quite big that we worked with, but I'm kind of more interested in trying to dig out smaller stuff and newer stuff really for now.
And again, grow something together in the same way you would on the distribution side.
Yeah, but that's it. I've got the deal constantly rolling with the distribution, so that's kind of just there. They don't interfere at all. They don't try and go, oh, maybe you should release this next. I just give them the record and they're happy enough to go with it.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll talk a bit more about dance music in Ireland in a broader sense in a few minutes' time. But for now, Kenny, thanks very much. Now we're going to have a look at Aoife Barry speaking to the drum and bass duo. It's Charmers.
I'm here with Dave and Connor from Charmers on Community of Independence. So I've got to ask, first of all, it struck me, were you trying to get across something about yourselves or your personalities by calling yourselves Charmers, or?
It's all Dave. Dave, you're a charming young man. No, it just was a word that sounded good. So
he says, how about Charmers? And I says, okay.
Yeah.
It was that quick, wasn't it?
That's kind of a sign of how you work together, so it's kind of...
Yeah, it's like, what do you reckon? Yeah, that's a good idea or that's a bad idea. It's only 2 of us, so it's really... Decision making is very easy. Played loads when we were younger together, and played 3 or 4 different bands. Went to San Juan Capistrano, one of them.
LA.
That was our great American journey.
We learned a lot from
little did we know. We went over to make it, Wow. We're gonna be a big band, and then we ended up...
No one could drive.
No.
Okay,
We thought it was like swords.
You did wrong.
We thought America was like
huge.
swords and we just walked from A to B.
It wasn't like that. We did befriend some nice American guys at a pool hall though, who had cars.
Yeah.
So they drove us everywhere.
They looked after us.
What did you have to do to get these guys to...
Nothing, we were Irish. That was it.
That was enough for
The
them.
currency.
Yeah, I think we were the first Irish people they ever met.
They gave us some pot noodles, that was about it, I think.
It's pretty good
We were
going.
lucky.
Yeah.
I got to meet you.
Chris used to bring up some breakfast sometimes.
We did.
And did you get to play any gigs on this fabled
We
tour
had
in
a
America?
residency
Yeah.
in the
Fish
fish
bucket.
bucket. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Fish bucket.
I haven't thought about the fish bucket in a long time.
So it wasn't quite like Jeff Buckley and the Sinead or anything like that, but maybe your version of
No.
that sort of thing.
No, like there's still no one watching us. It was, you know.
No, not at all.
But he gave us our $100.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
had some Carl's Jr. Always
Carlos Jr. Yeah.
well. Always well.
So what made you decide to go, okay, well, we could get together and be a duo again after our adventures? How did that all come about?
Just because we've been friends for so long that I suppose I live now in Chapel Lizard, he lives in Swords, so we don't get to see each other that much.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we were just drunk one night and just went, let's make a band so we get to hang out a bit more. That's exactly
That
what we
was
did.
It.
Pretty
Pretty much.
cool.
Yeah.
That's the only reason Charmers exists.
Yeah.
And,
We met up, jammed in Kev's shed once or twice and
yeah.
got a few songs. Says, okay.
That's the goal of this
Yeah.
band, is to hang
Just
out a
have
bit.
a laugh, pretty much.
Not really to do anything.
And extras.
Yeah.
Just to have a laugh.
Even this is extra.
It's a bonus. And yet, was it your first gig or one of your first gigs was supporting And So I Watch You from Afar? Is that right?
First.
Was that the first one?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
starting pretty high up there,
Yeah,
shall
it's
we
a
say?
cool
Mhm.
start.
It was nice.
That was a
alright.
really good night.
Yeah, it was great. We got there, we played our set, and we had a great time afterwards. We watched.
Played our
We watched
music and we had a good time.
That's what
Yeah.
we do. That's what we want to do. Just want to hang out, have a laugh, get drunk, maybe once a month or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Do you know what I mean?
All the world will sing your praises.
It's quite easy in a way these days to kind of get your music made and get it out there much faster than it was before, in a way, you know, that people can become aware of who you are really, really quickly. And obviously with the cast of Cheers as well, people would have known who you were and kind of what you were doing. But do you think that kind of can force people then into making stuff like kind of maybe what you're hinting to there, that you can all of a sudden be making an album because it's expected of you? Maybe 10 years ago you would have had a little bit more breathing space, or that it would have taken a while for your music to filter through to people, and, you know, pre-internet days, I suppose.
I think it's probably more to do with just our, I don't know, the way we are as people. Like,
Yeah.
we're very anxious musicians. Just need to just keep going, and you know, so yeah.
It's not a bad thing that people hear the music, though. Do you know?
Yeah.
It's- I don't mind. I think that's a good thing. If people hear stuff and they like it, well, that's great. But it's what you do with it. Then, if you want to play it and keep going, and you have this goal to go to that,
Yeah.
and you want to work your ass off. Whereas with this, we don't really want to do that. You know, it's just that's a bit of a hassle. You know, like-
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really weird.
yeah, I
like-
know. Yeah, it sounds kind of like, yeah, right. But it's like I've got a job. I'm happy with
Yeah.
it. I've done that shit before.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, and I have my other band that
Yeah.
I'm really happy with. So
Yeah.
we're just honestly just
Yeah,
just,
like we want to keep on playing together for as long as we want to, pretty much.
yeah.
And then-
So it'd be good. Like that's
Yeah.
why I suppose when we release the album, I don't know when we will or what we're
Mm.
doing with it, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's really good that we don't care, because people could really hate it, and at least we have that get out clause of, well,
Yeah.
we don't really care if you
Yeah.
like it or hate it.
we
so
like it. So
That's all that matters,
Yeah,
I suppose.
pretty much
Like,
for us,
yeah.
We'll definitely mix it and definitely get it out at some point, but God
yeah.
knows when.
yeah,
It would be something like, you know, I suppose Bandcamp, that sort of thing, self-release online.
We
or
could do.
you
We could do a self-release. Could do a Bandcamp thing.
Yeah.
Could do a free album. I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
But
haven't thought of it at
we
all.
really haven't thought about it.
options are
Loosey
open.
goosey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we're playing that, like that was our third gig we played here. Like
Wow.
it was, so we haven't really thought much about the band at all.
We haven't.
Maybe I put you on a path of, you know, thinking a lot harder about it.
yeah. This is. I've learned a lot from this. Maybe we should actually talk about the band.
There's nothing like a bit of mystery.
Exactly. It's mystery. We're creating mystique.
Well, we like a bit of mystery on Community of Independence, so thank you, Charmers, for chatting
Thank
to
you.
us.
Thanks for having us.
No problem at all, anytime, and I look forward to seeing what happens in the future with you, whether
So do
that
we.
whether that album gets mixed or not. And over now to Danny in the studio.
Dave and Connor from Charmers speaking to Aoife Barry. You're going to see a performance from them later in the show, but I am here with Kenny Hanlon of Apartment Records. Obviously earlier we were talking about the label and everything that's been going on with that, but in terms of dance music in Dublin, electronic music in Ireland in a broader sense, can I ask you, is there a collective knowledge amongst people listening to dance music in Ireland? Like, do you find that there's nights that people are going where they're attentive for a more niche side of music?
Yeah, to a certain extent, you'd like to think that you know, when you're doing parties or you're playing, that you know, everybody in the crowd is really locked in, whatever. For some smaller ones, yeah, maybe, but it's always a kind of 50-50 situation, I think, anywhere. You know, people are just going to clubbing as well, just to dance and whatnot, so they mightn't be too sort of, you know, going specifically to nights, but there's always been it's fairly small, obviously, even though you could say that kind of bats above its own weight. You know, you see the size of the city and you see the acts that we do get over and things like that, but there's always been a pretty decent knowledge around the country, you know, for different styles of music, you know, depending on the city as well.
Sure. I mean, you would have been pushing through stuff like Italo dance, like music, like that was something you were putting on club nights for.
Well, I do play it. I'm not involved specifically in any of the nights, but I would play regularly off at Forza Italo, which is a kind of a really interesting night, the way it's come about and become so popular for such. Like there's like Lunar Disco and Electric City over the years, we're bringing over Italo acts, and it was part of the music policy. But it's a fairly niche, sort of weird genre. Yeah. But yeah, that's probably one of the most successful nights, you know, the last few years. I think the startup, and it's great as well to kind of see this, because it's such weird music. But you know, if you get enough people into it, that they'd really go for it. So, you know, that was, you know, you'd rarely find a night anywhere in the world really, you know, specific to Italo. There's obviously been a few over the years, different places, but it's definitely, like, you notice it from the acts that come over. You know, they're kind of, especially some of the older Italo guys that come over. Yeah, they're kind of really shocked and surprised that you know, this kind of crazy crowd going for it.
And can I ask, with the club nights in Dublin, like we've had people like Sunil Sharp writing about, you know, curfews being a real a hamper on club nights in Dublin. Would you agree with that? Like, what's your experience of it?
Yeah, like it's kind of annoying, obviously, especially when you can go nearly anywhere else in the world, or definitely in Europe, and not have the problem. And it's even worse down the country. You know, it can be finishing at 2 o'clock in Cork or 2 o'clock in Galway, maybe have to if you're lucky. But at this stage, yeah, I'm just used to it, and you get on with it. Yeah. You know, you can, like, even more so than, I'd be happy even with just an hour or two more. You know, I don't need to have, you know, the 24-hour clubbing situation. Obviously, it'd be nice if you could. Sure. But an hour or two even would be great. But at this stage, you know, there's like I'm not going to be kind of coming out of a night anymore, you know, wound up because it's finished so early. And you know, people can moan as much as they want about these sort of things, like, but Irish crowds won't go to a club early either. Yeah. You know, so they go on about, oh, you know, we wish it was going all night. You know, and you try and cater for them sometimes, like if you bring over 2 acts, you know, and try to, you know, usually you just kind of have room for, we'd say, 1 headline act. You try and bring over 2 in a night, or go, you know, you've offers, you know, cheaper,
sure, to entice people.
You know, 9 times out of 10, the place doesn't get busier earlier. So for all their, you know, if they really wanted to get that extra hour out of clubbing, they could just go an hour early. Sure. But they don't want to. So, you know, you just kind of get on with it at this stage. Yeah, you can work within the limitation of it anyway. Yeah, and that there is some parties, you know, where people will get on a little bit earlier for them. But generally, you know, if you're talking about places like Twisted Pepper or whatnot, you know, if they're not going to, you know, if the people aren't going to get down early and then they're going to moan about it not opening late, well, you know, you just get on with it. Sure. And I mean, on the note of the Twisted Pepper, obviously that's been a great space in the last few years. I mean, is there a lack of spaces, or do you find that caters for what's needed in Dublin? It caters to a certain extent. I think what's really missing in Dublin, as I was chatting to a friend about this recently, is a kind of, you know, a good sort of, there is a few basement spots around the place. You know, we are involved in a night down in the Sweeney Mongrel, Gary's gang, but there could be, you know, another maybe 100, 200 capacity room on its own, you know, to kind of do stuff. There's a lot of, like the Twisted Pepper, and, you know, you had Kennedy's before that, and Sweeney Mongrel, and 1 or 2 other places, you know, they do pretty well, and the Pepper has got 2 decent sized rooms and whatnot, but there's always always room for more. Itching for more. Yeah, that could put on some different type of stuff as well. Right. But again, you know, he's at this stage, you're kind of used to it. It'd be great if somebody could turn up at one or two other places, but it's pretty hard to sustain as well.
Yeah.
You know, you have to remember that you're kind of dealing with a small enough crowd as well. So it's a moot point, really. You just you get on with it. You try and find somewhere.
Yeah. And like in terms of putting on events for Apartment Records, like have you found that there's been people accommodating and supporting what you've done?
Yeah, like the Body Tonic, the Twisted Pepper, we've done a couple of parties there, and hopefully do some more again in the future. We've done parties out in Galway as well, which is always a really good time out there. And then being involved in the night down in Swinny Mungers, the monthly night Gary's Gang, you know, I've the option of doing sort of label related stuff down there. So for myself, yeah, you know, if I have an idea to do a launch party or something like that, I have bases covered, and you know, I won't be wanting for somewhere, I don't think, anyway.
Okay, well Kenny, thanks very much for coming into the
Cheers,
show.
Thanks.
Now we're going to have a look at Charmers recorded live in the Button Factory. Believe.
You're true. I'll pray for you, even though I know you don't want me to. We've traversed the world. I heard the love that you said. I know your name, even though you all look the same. With you, I'll be your backbone, even though you do not have to be true. I will love you no matter what. I'll be your only, and you do not even have to be true. I'll wait for you, even though I know you take all night. I'll be your rock, I'll walk with you into the night. I know your name, even though you all look the same. I'll place a bet, I bet that I'll get fucking royal. I'll wait for you. I'll be your backbone, and you do not even have to be true. I will love you no matter what. I'll be your only, and you do not have to be any true for me, for you, for me, for you. Just to remember, just to believe in.
Get out of my seat, Gels. Hey guys, this week I'll be reviewing Secret Chief's 3 new album, Book of Souls. I thought the album was amazing and it crosses so many different genres. I found Book of Souls extremely enjoyable to listen to, and some of the songs were exciting and funny. I like to imagine stories to go along with the music. Overall, I found the album really good, and that's pretty much it. What do you think, Giles Holland? And back to you, Danny.
Joe Blades and his erudite accomplice, Giles Holland, going to have another review from them next week. But now it's time for our gig guide, and we're starting with the gig tomorrow night in the Sugar Club. €5 in for Forza Corro. That is a Italian DJ night featuring DJ Guglielmo, and also DJ Sebastian Simonetti. So €5 into that at 10:30 or €10 after midnight. That's going on to the break of 3 a.m. Also Friday night in the Academy, Peter Hook and the Light on a grave digging expedition. He, the happy-go-lucky bassist from New Order, going to be performing in full Power, Corruption, Lies and Movements. They being two albums he made many, many years ago with two guys he doesn't talk to anymore. $22.50 into that one, Friday night in the Academy. Friday night in Fibber McGee's, it's the Life and Death Fest. That's actually a two-day event that featuring the Flex, earth-shattering rock band Nibiru, and as well as that Hollow Truth. Just a smattering of some of the bands playing the Life and Death Fest in Fibber McGee's. Saturday night in the Workman's Club, €10 in for the late David Turpin Fur Party. Not really sure what that is, but there's George Costanza in a fur hat. Playing that one are No Monster Club, Carriages, Margie Lewis and Gavin Glass. Saturday night. You see, I got it mixed up because it was meant to be in Citation, but now Papacalia is happening in the Grand Social. It's €5 into this now. Don't Bring Your Budgel anymore. That's featuring Windings, SoCow and Landlubbers. So €5 Grand Social Saturday night, not to be confused with Citation where it was meant to be. Now, Saturday night in the Button Factory, Simeon Mobile Disco will be appearing with support from Subaltern. They're represented by Simeon, Monkey, Disco, DJing, all that connection there. Finally, Sunday night in the Thomas House, €7 in on the door. I've got 20 acres, you've got 43. I've got a brand new gig by Harvester to mention. Harvester headlining with support from Wild Rocket, Objectors and Tusks. Thomas House, Sunday night, €7 in. So those are your gigs that do be happening this weekend. But here's a gig that happened last weekend. It's the Festival for Choice, happened in the Twisted Pepper, and we went down with some cameras. Let's have a look.
Festival of Choice is a two-day event in the Twisted Pepper in Dublin, and all proceeds are going towards the Abortion Rights Campaign and the Abortion Support Network. So it's like a two-day music and arts based kind of event with discussions and zine stalls and talks and film screenings all day on Saturday, and a gig that night and a gig on Friday night as well. And basically, like, the reason that I did it was because I found it strange that nobody had actually thought of it before. Like, it's been such a year of like things happening with regards to choice in Dublin, in Ireland as a whole, you know, that like I feel like the tide's like properly changing. But the only thing is that some of the events that are on, like the, you know, vigils and marches and stuff like that, sometimes they kind of have it can get a bit kind of heavy for everybody who's doing work for that kind of thing all the time. Like, you know, kind of feels like you're fighting a losing battle at times, which, you know, I think that isn't the case, but sometimes it's all very serious and stuff. So I kind of wanted a weekend where we could all just kind of like celebrate all the good things that have happened this year and just kind of enjoy ourselves and try and make some money for those groups in the process. So that's what it is. The minute that I was thinking about doing the festival, I thought I'll do a gig, you know, one of the nights or two of the nights. And most of the bands, if not all the bands, are friends of mine personally. I think an event like this I probably would have never done had I not become involved in the punk scene in Dublin at all. It wouldn't have occurred to me, you know, had I not met all the people that I've met in the last 10 years. All of the bands came to me before I even asked them. Most of them messaged me and said, hey, I hear you're thinking about doing this Festival of Choice. I'll do it, no problem.
I go to a lot of the rallies and stuff, and it can get you down after a while because the situation's really dire, and I just love that there's stuff like this that is uplifting and social. Well, not that the protests aren't social, but they're kind of more solemn as well. But it's that building of community, which I think is really important, and the kind of, something uplifting in the light of this dire situation. Yeah.
I suppose I'm just annoyed that I don't have the option to have an abortion if and when I need it. And it bothers me that other women in Ireland don't have that possibility, and they have to travel to England and have the same procedure abroad when they could just have it back in Ireland.
I'm an artist. I'm all about cultural influence. I really think politics follows culture in a way, and you have to change attitudes before you change legislation.
I came here tonight. I was playing with UBS, so I came along because of that. Yeah, I think it's great. I'm really excited that they're doing this festival to get some money together, and fair play to them all for doing it. It's a really great cause, and yeah, really excited about it. So yeah.
I must go away, she said, when the little cock will crow, for it's he they will not love.
I grew up in the States, and where I grew up, at the time, women had the choice, they had complete control over their own bodies. So it was pretty shocking when I moved to Ireland 12 years ago. I didn't realize abortion was illegal, and it was quite shocking. And it's shocking to anyone I knew who, from the States or other places, that didn't know about it because it was so taken for granted, especially that long ago. It kind of seems like in a lot of places it's swung the other way, where people are becoming a lot more controlling over women's choices and what women should be able to do with their bodies. So it hasn't changed my opinion. It's strengthened it, if anything, especially because often, the anti-choice side are so violent and graphic.
On your wings of silver to grey. But this pretty cockroach, these sense of a little cock, he grew loud too soon.
Definitely meeting all those, particularly women from the punk scene, definitely kind of gave me my first kind of, what would I say, my first experience of what's pro-choice, what abortion isn't legal in Ireland. Oh, I didn't know that. What's this? What's that? And it kind of opened up my eyes, I suppose, to injustices kind of in this country and around the world. All my friends were kind of, into punk and into rock music anyway, but I hadn't actually come in contact with any sort of punk scene until then. When I started doing gigs with the band, and I met a whole load of people, really cool women who were 5, 6, 7, 10 years older than me. And we all just, they taught me a lot about, I suppose it's the first time that I would have kind of considered, feminism, okay, I'm a feminist. I would have always been, but it was the first time, that I kind of met people like that, of it, from that for me, from a punk persuasion.
Festival for Choice in the Twisted Pepper. I am joined by Mo T, or is it Mo 2? It's now Mo 2. We can officially announce this evening.
That's the announcement.
Mo and Paul, thanks very much for coming into the show.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Let me ask you, you rose like a phoenix from the ashes of Dysfunctional. That's the first and last time we'll ever use that metaphor. Can I ask you, how was your experience in Dysfunctional, and how did that shape what you're doing now?
I don't think it didn't shape it at all. I suppose it put me in the mind of I enjoyed producing more than rapping on stage and pretending I was in the Beastie Boys for 5 or 10 minutes, you know. But it's like more enjoyable now, I suppose, with Mo, that I can kind of take a back seat now and don't have to do as much or get on stage and hold a microphone and create dialogue, which I'm doing now.
Yeah, all those technical issues of actually having to hold things there.
Yeah, that
their
can be
problem.
hard, yeah. He has it down to a T. A Mo T.
Took a lot of time. Let me ask you, played some gigs, kind of like punk gigs, and you've also worked with Gazla Rock in the past. Is that kind of crossover something you'd be interested in pursuing further?
Yeah, we just happen to be everywhere, you know. We'll just happen to be in those sort of arenas and, you know, arenas. It's not like we're playing arenas.
The Enormodomes.
Yeah, no, we just happen to have played those shows because the people we know generally play at those sort of shows, and, you know, all my friends aren't, you know, they're not all members of the Outlaws, so we don't, you know, we don't play loads of hip hop shows, you know that way.
Yeah. Can I ask you? You have some diverse influences: Spike Milligan, Eric Cantona. How do they shape what you do?
Yeah, very much so. Spike shapes me more or less every day.
Yeah.
I'm big into the Baroque period, Romantic poets.
Okay.
They influence me, you know. Big into 80s synth music, you know.
Yes.
Everything influences me though because of what I do. It's just, you know, it's everything that happens to come into my head or touch my life in any way will come out on the page in some form because how I write is so messy and erratic and, you know, cut and paste kind of bob and weave style, you know. So anything that happens to me will come out. So
it'll be fed into that, yeah. And the new album, Judgment Day, when's that coming out? Tell us about it.
Ooh, when is that coming out? You won't tell me. You won't tell me.
I'm kind of keeping them. We live together now, so it's kind of easier to work together. But it actually isn't. We actually do less now.
Yeah, we've done less since
now that we're together.
Since we became Mo2, less productive.
Yeah, we've become less productive, I suppose. Yeah, but we kind of work in a process where I'd make something, and then he'll take it, and then he'll get back to me in about a week or so, and then we'll try to get around and record it. But we recorded my old house, and like my ma is always there and all, so we can't record. We can't be up in the bedroom like shouting all sorts. Like, have you heard him?
Yeah. No, that'd be a bit awkward. Can I ask you, Paul? Did you start learning how to DJ through a PlayStation game?
Close enough. I learned how to produce and see like loops and read music, I suppose, through stuff like EJ and all when I was a kid, like Rave EJ on the PC. So that kind of, I started knowing then how to like multi-track and, you know, drum track and snares, and now it's kind of to the point now where we use like Ableton and then we master in Pro Tools ourselves, like we do everything ourselves. So we just kind of through trial and error, really, isn't it? Each time we do something, we want to make the next one a bit bigger, I suppose, bigger sounds, and learn something new.
Yeah. Find that music, it's, you know, just kind of it's a tumbleweed, you know. Just it gathers moss from every little different arena, be it on my side where it's something that I've listened to and want to put down, or it's something he's listened to and wants to put down in the musical form of it, you know.
Let me ask you, you don't play many gigs. Why is that?
Because it's I don't know really. Why is that?
There's probably a few reasons.
Well, my favourite act of all time is a man named Jabriat. Never played a live show, so there we go.
We're not allowed to play. Well, we've got a few turned noses at certain gigs.
We've had every sort of gig under the sun. Like we played to like say 10 people, and them 10 people have walked away going, they're the best band in the world. Whereas we played to, you know, a couple of hundred people who are going like, they're very bad. Don't like them. You know, it's just because we're very divisive in what we do. You know, you'll probably see that in a few minutes.
Yeah, well, tell us about the song you're going to play for us tonight.
It's called El Diablo.
What inspired El Diablo?
Everything really, modern music kind of inspired the lyric writing of it, because like the music itself that Paul gave me initially was, you know, was very early hip hop based. You know, remind me of like, you know, the sort of late 80s stuff that I would like, you know. So it's all about, you know, taking it back to that sort of style.
Right,
but then the second verse is more, you know, it all kind of stops and changes, and then it becomes a Mode 2 song for the second verse.
Brilliant. So let's have a look at Mode 2 here in the studio, Community of Independence, El Diablo.
You look lovely. Much like my first wife, after I'd finished with her. Who's the king? I don't know. That's the thing, I'm not so. New boil all up in your face. Let's take it back to where it first takes place. Hip hop, that is just me and Pablo, smoking a Diablo, less of the aggro. I was stabbed with a stabilo. Boy, I made up Laszlo, Panaflex, let's have sex like it's a bad joke. Scoop in the loop is you're a mad joke. People pass a judgment on you with their eyes. It makes you look away to clear blue skies whilst I surmise. Whoop-de-doo, big surprise. Every day I wake up jaded, every night a bit of me dies. Shout out to Trevor Morgan and Southside FM. Shout out to Kearney, because he's in New Zealand. We didn't even mention him in the interview. But he'll be back soon. Until then, just come and party with us. Let's go. Let's go. I want to sing. I want to sing. Yes. Yes. Didn't really want to die, so I fell in love with the sky. But when I got there, I was scared and unprepared. I didn't really want to live, so I acted like a kid. But then I grew up when I met my true love. She made me a better me. I cried heresy. My source is a strength, maximize that length. She gave me what I needed. I begged and I pleaded. I didn't really want to last. A flagger half-mast. Could have done with more sense. I should have seen the portents, it was of importance. And the biggest shout out of all to Noel Gallagher and Bonehead. And more especially, my own head. From once where thoughts have come, to which they then run, and end up in this form, which is not even close to the norm. I had a boner throughout all that, so maybe we'll have to do it again.